What's up, everybody? Welcome into the F6 Football Podcast. Cam Copeland here, joining you with Alex Rogalin. And ladies and gentlemen, we are done with regular season football. A little bit exciting as we head into the playoffs, a little bit of sorrow because, no more red zone, no more of those back-to-back-to-back games each and every Sunday and Thursday and Monday and all that excitement that we've grown to love over the last 3 to 4 months. But so it's a bit bittersweet, but we have a lot to talk about today, including, we'll recap the final week of the season, go over a few important games, but I want to touch on that college football championship last night, as well as go over some of the coaching changes that have happened. And by changes, I mean some of the coaches and GMs who have been fired over the last couple of days. So, Alex, I'm really excited for this episode, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Cam. You do get to have one more weekend of the back-to-back-to-back games. So that is super wild card weekend.
That's true.
We'll deliver that at least once on Sunday. There'll be 3 games. But then that's it, man. After that, then it is sad. Then it's just a couple more weeks. You got, I guess, 4 games each of the 2 weeks after that. Well, I mean, the week after that, and then down to 2 games. And then the Super Bowl. So, yes, we will be in really, it sounds weird, but in no time, we're going to be talking about the combine. So that's not that far away. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's touch base on a couple of these games that just happened. Maybe get at least the ones that matter, right? And then we can talk about, we'll jump into and give everybody our brackets for the playoffs. So that's exciting. So week 18 stuff. I'll start with one of the games that I thought was surprising, maybe not. The Jags and Titans. That game was on in my region, so I went ahead and watched that game. And it was a game that, honestly, the Titans just kind of bullied the Jaguars. Definitely took advantage of them in the line of scrimmage. Looked like the more physical team throughout the game, and I still did feel pretty good about the chances for the Jags to pull that thing out late. But they just couldn't get it done. It was really disappointing to see their season end that way, especially when, a few weeks ago, it looked like they had a stranglehold on this division. So that really sucks for Jag fans, and just a disappointing way to end the season.
Yeah, it really looked like they were a lock, but they lost after they beat the Texans. They lost to the Bengals, the Browns, the Ravens, the Buccaneers, and the Titans, with only one win in there against the Panthers. So they did not have a good finish to the season whatsoever. And as you said, it appeared as if they were a lock to win the division. And for them to be entirely out of the playoffs, that's absurd. I know a lot of people were calling for the Titans to win this game too. It's not, the Titans weren't playing for much. The Jaguars were, and yet here we are. So it is surprising. I wouldn't be too surprised to see more coaching turnover happen on that staff as well, based on how poorly this season did end for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, folks, if you can't hear me very well, I might be having some microphone issues at the moment. So Cam, why don't you?
Oh, there. That got loud.
Why don't you take us in? Good. Oh, what about now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, you can. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. All right, good. Well, with that, should we touch base on the Texans and Colts game?
Oh, man, let's do it. That one was a doozy. Can't put it any other way. That game came down to the wire. And for those of you who missed the game, it seemed extremely close. And the Colts were marching down. And then they went for it on 4th down. Minshew slightly underthrew the back, and he got both hands on it and just dropped the ball right at the 1st down marker. And it was a very, as players do when they drop the ball in crucial situation, you lay on the ground, face down, pumped his fist a couple times to beat up the ground, assert his dominance, and they lost. They're out of the playoffs. Right, so the Texans came through. Texans look good. Now, I will say neither team looked San Francisco or Baltimore level good, right? They
For
didn't
sure.
as if they, in my opinion, they weren't playing up to the caliber of some of those other top teams who the Texans at least will be facing very shortly. But we'll get into next week soon enough. What were your takeaways from this game?
I did think that the better team won. I think both of these teams had, obviously, I mean, both of these fan bases, I would assume if you would have told them they would have ended with a winning record, I would think both fan bases would be over the moon about about where their seasons went. So, I mean, it's disappointing to see the way that game ended for the Colts. But man, Gardner Minshew showed once again why, he's going to be a backup in this league for a long time. So, he can step in and make a team competitive over more than just one or two games over the course of a season. So I think he just played himself into another probably 15 years in the league. But I think if they can get Anthony Richardson back next year, have him back healthy, and especially if they can bring Pittman back. I know he's a free agent, but if they can bring him back and some of the guys on defense, I think that they could have a legitimate shot at winning the division next year. So disappointing way to end for the Colts, but I think right now the Texans have a slight edge on them. But a couple changes in the offseason, and the Colts could be right there next year.
Yeah, especially as you said, once again, Anthony Richardson back, assuming I know he hasn't played, but he is a hard worker from all sources that have been around him, and I do think he'll come back pretty well. And one big takeaway from this season for both the Colts and Texans is that they found their dude at head coach, right? I mean, DeMeco Ryans and Shane Steichen are both, I think, two of the better head coaches in the league already. There are not a lot of great head coaches, and I think that they're making a firm case each to be considered a great head coach moving forward.
Yeah, if I was the Eagles, I'd call Shane Steichen right now and ask him if he'd come back. Say they give him the head coaching job, and you can ask Sirianni to pack up his box of things.
Yeah, you bring up often, what does Sirianni do? What does he do?
He doesn't do anything. He hoots and hollers. That's all he does.
Yeah, and I'm in a pretty active Discord server with a lot of football folks, and they were kind of having this conversation today with all the coaching changes that are happening. Everyone's like, wait, so who runs the offense? Okay, who runs the defense? Okay, what does he do? What and
so tell me no one could give me here.
Yeah, no one could give me any better answer than he is emotional and hypes up his players, and he's a culture guy. But the culture right now is not looking too hot in Philadelphia, and that's a whole other story.
Yep. So do you want to touch on, obviously I know we can touch for a minute on the Bills-Dolphins game, but there were obviously other games that impacted the playoffs, but do you want to hit on any other games before we wrap up with Bills-Dolphins?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the hilarity of the NFC South, right? If the Falcons beat the Saints and the Buccaneers lost to the Panthers last week, the Falcons would be in the playoffs. They're not, so they have the 8th overall pick of the draft. That wide range of outcomes in the last week alone is absurd. And, the Buccaneers almost lost to the Panthers. It doesn't look like it on the box score, right? Panthers scored 0. It was 9-0. But the Panthers had at least one missed field goal and a touchdown that was called back. That was probably would have been a touchdown without the penalty as well. So it was really close to being Panthers having at least 10 points on the board. So, we'll get into our brackets, but I don't see the Buccaneers going too far.
Yeah, that was just not a great division. But I will say for a minute, which I know it would end up being sort of a hot topic, talking about the Saints going for that touchdown at the end of the game. I had zero issues with it. It's the NFL. Arthur Smith was, he flipped out after the game, went and screamed at Dennis Allen and lost his mind. Well, guess what? Your team got destroyed. That touchdown had nothing to do with the outcome of the game. It's the NFL. These guys, this isn't like rookie, peewee football. These guys are playing, this is their livelihood. Like, I don't blame Jamal Williams at all for wanting to get that touchdown and have that on his, on his stats for the season. So I mean,
Well,
it
did
was
you see who
technically
made the
Jameis
call?
Winston. It was Jameis
Yeah.
Winston, right? Which, once again, you know what? It's Jameis Winston. The guy's always had a ton of talent, but his decision making, it's been questionable, right? So I'm not shocked. But like, if I was Dennis, I mean, like, that's just it's I don't it's also one of those things where it's like these are competitive guys, like ultra hyper competitive guys. So like, imagine this: if Sean Payton was still there, and after the game, if Arthur Smith comes up at him cursing, what do you think Sean Payton's going to do? Think Sean Payton's going to say sorry? No, Sean
Gonna
Payton's going
laugh
to
at
say,
him.
"Kiss my butt." Your team sucks. Go away. Of course, he'll use a lot more colorful language than that. But the point is like, I mean, come on, Arthur Smith, bad look. If you didn't want him to score, you should have stopped him. And so for me, I have no problem with it. It's a good. It's just more cannon fodder for the media.
Now, what do you think of the narrative that Dennis Allen is just not respected by his players because all the players are backing Winston and he just should
I mean, is that a
leave
shocker to
immediately? I
anyone?
think
Like, I don't think Dennis Allen was ever a good choice as a head coach anyway. So, I mean, it's not a shocker. It honestly, like, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, the Jameis Winston, I mean, that's just how he is. So I'm not shocked.
all right, man. Let's finish up with the Bills Dolphins.
Yeah, so I obviously watched that game closely. I knew that game was going to impact who the Chiefs got in the first round of the playoffs. If the Dolphins won, then it was going to be they were just going to run that back again, and it was going to be the Bills once again going to Miami to play the Dolphins in the first round, and the Chiefs would have had the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with the Bills win, obviously they jump all the way up to the 2 seed, and now the Dolphins are coming to Kansas City, and we will get into that. But I mean, the first half, I mean, I guess the best way to sum it up for me is it's like the full Josh Allen experience, right? The first half had at least 3 times where you're going, dude, what are you doing? Like both of those red zone interceptions, like what and like who, like what are you doing, man? Like especially on that second one, like there's like 4 guys there and he just throws it right into the middle of the end zone. Like it was like that was like an easy interception. So I mean, it's just sometimes Josh Allen just becomes a turnover machine, right? And so the first half with how he was playing, I was like, oh man, like Bills ain't gonna win this game unless he turns it around. Now, kudos to him that punt return obviously really sparked him and obviously turned the tide quite a bit. And then the Bills just poured it on, and then Allen got zoned in and had a couple great runs and some great passes in the second half. So I mean, it was kind of the full Josh Allen experience, going from the what are you doing? Who are you throwing it to man, that was sweet. So I guess I'd compare him to like maybe the modern day Brett Favre, because that's how Brett Favre was, right? He was a turnover machine, but he also obviously made incredible throws and plays that no one else could make. So there we go. I think it's the full Josh Allen experience. What did you think, Cam?
Yeah, well, I unfortunately don't have much to add. As a Christmas gift, my mom got my fiance and me and her tickets to go see a musical Ragtime that Sunday night. And I wasn't going to say, what? It's the last week of regular season, Mom. No way. No way. So we went and saw that. It began just before the game started. We got home just after the game ended. I didn't get a chance to review it too closely. So I was getting some live updates from friends. Oh, Josh Allen just threw another pick. It's like, all right. So, but I'm not surprised at the score. The Bills trounced the Dolphins earlier in the year. I think week 3 or 4. And most people had them winning this game as well.
Yep. All right. Well, you want to move on and jump into our playoff brackets?
Well, let's not forget another important game that happened before we get into our playoff brackets. I just want to touch on the Michigan-Washington game last night, college football championship, because it was an entertaining game. It was not as lights out, high scoring as I anticipated. On Washington, there are a lot of offensive potential NFL prospects, right? You have Michael Penix at the helm at quarterback. Their left tackle, Torrey Fontenot, is highly regarded. I'm not as big of a fan, and I think he'll be playing guard or even center. But A lot of people think he'll be a good left tackle in the NFL. And then 3 receivers. Rome Odunze, probably a top 10 pick. He's a freak athlete. They have Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, both who are going to be drafted. So this is a high-flying offense led by Michael Penix, and they just couldn't do anything. They were held to 1 touchdown, right? I believe 13 points. Michael Penix looked injured the entire game. One thing, I love Penix, and I've been astounded throughout the season at how consistently accurate he is at all levels of the field, from mostly from in the pocket, but even off platform, he's been relatively accurate. He was just missing throws left and right last night. I mean, easier throws that he makes in his sleep the rest of the season. And maybe it's the pressure getting to him. That probably is a big factor. But I'm just wondering how severe the injuries are, how much his pain affected his performance. Because the man I saw play against Michigan last night was not Michael Penix. Now, that said, Michigan had a stranglehold on this game, especially in the second half. The first half, they at least brought it up to a 1-score game. But Michigan won this game fair and square. Kudos to them. Very well. I thought their play calling was significantly better than Washington's as well on the offensive side of the ball. They have a lot of very talented prospects that are going to enter the NFL as well. So, Alex, what did you think about this game?
So, just from the eye test, a couple things. I thought it was going to be a really long night for Washington, because after those first few drives when Michigan was just dominating Washington in the trenches, I mean, they were and they were running it right down their throat. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be a really long game, for Washington. And I got to give it to the Huskies. They really bounced back, and their defense really tightened up in the second half against the run. And made that, and especially during that third quarter, and gave their offense a shot, right? They got some stops, kept it within 1 score, gave their offense opportunities. And then I think so I think, kudos to Washington for the defense for stiffening up, because I thought they were just going to get ran over. But I think in the end, I think to me, it looks like Michigan just has more NFL level guys that are going to go on, and play in the NFL. And it looks like that to me, and it looks like the Michigan's just the more talented team. So that didn't surprise me. That usually by the third, fourth quarter, especially like I said in the trenches, usually the better talented and coached team, kind of takes advantage there in the fourth quarter. And then the only other thing to add to what you said, I agree with what you said on Michael Penix Jr. I guess the only thing that stood out to me is, it did not look like he was getting very much into his throws, which that would be a little bit concerning to me, because, you look at that he's a big, strong, athletic guy, but the ball was just like floating out of his hand. Like it did not have the velocity that you would expect to see. And so, and when you're not throwing with velocity, that means making those outside of the numbers throws become 10 times harder, because now it's your timing has to be perfect, and you have to anticipate it so much earlier than even the receiver breaking the route. So it ends up being that much harder. So I think that was that to me, because there's certain things you can teach, right? But to be a successful NFL quarterback, like, you don't have to have a cannon for an arm, but you got to be able to hum it with some velocity. And that was disappointing to see that he really. I don't think he had any throws that really jumped off the page to me of looking like a future NFL capable starter.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Because the season is riddled with those impressive throws. He has them week in and week out. I mean, you just watched 1 week ago against Texas, and you'd think he was going to be a top 5 pick. He played lights out in that game, and people were talking about him as a potential top 5 pick. Now, he probably was never going to go that high anyway. He's a 6th-year player. His medical history would probably take up 2 pages of a Word document to type out. It's ridiculous, everything this guy's been through. But one thing that has never been in question is his poise in the pocket, his the velocity on his third, the touch at all levels of the field, his accuracy. And then everything you were so confident about just went out the window last night. And you're wondering how this guy got to where he is. So, again, I need to look more into what gets released about the injuries that he did suffer. I mean, you could tell he was grabbing at his ribs. His leg got rolled up on earlier. I just don't think he was in any position to play, and they might have even sat him if it weren't the championship game or the playoffs, right? We don't know this information yet.
I like the toughness. The toughness, but yeah, it is concerning though when you're an NFL team thinking about drafting him.
Right. So we'll see where he ends up going. Congrats to Michigan again after those 2 Donovan Edwards touchdowns. Where, by the way, Donovan Edwards made himself some money last night. Recording this Tuesday. One major knock I had on him is his ability to his vision and his jump cuts in the backfield. He usually stays a bit upright. He tries to force things sometimes that really aren't there, leading to lower yards after contact. But man, he had some low cuts, good vision, and great burst, just upfield to take off. And he's always been a home run hitter. So he definitely made himself some money last night. All right, well, enough about college. Let's get back to the pros, man. Let's get into our brackets.
Yes, sir. How do you want to do this? Do you want to go game by game and we'll each give our picks, or do you want to go over yours and I'll go over mine? What do you think?
Wild card, let's go game by game, and then we'll see who plays who leading from there on. Is it possible to get the document up on the screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so again, we don't talk before this. We just wing it live with you guys. Let's go to the landing page, display that, and so we can walk through those games, and then we can get into our individual brackets for divisional, conference, and Super Bowl.
Yep.
All right.
It's pulled up now.
So for all you YouTube watchers out there, which definitely the least viewed platform of the bunch, you can see the games up on the screen. For the listeners, we'll say them for you. So let's start with wildcard Houston versus the Cleveland Browns. Who you got, Alex?
So before I give my answer, one of the things that, when I was building my bracket, I kept in mind is that, it's a little crazy in the playoffs. It's just, since it's just one game, anything can happen. And every year, there's a couple games, sometimes 2-3 games, right, in the first few rounds that are either surprising or where a dog wins. It just matters who gets hot. So for me, I'm actually taking the underdog, which is, in this case, the home team. I'm taking the Texans. My thought here is I really like the Cleveland Browns defense, and I don't really like the Texans defense that much. But when I see CJ Stroud play, I mean, to me, he plays so free and so he truly plays like he has nothing to lose, because he doesn't. This whole, even being in the playoffs and getting a home playoff game for the Texans is that's such a gift. I mean, they're so far ahead of schedule. And so for me, I think the Texans come in. I think they come in loose. They're at home. And I think that, just let her rip and see what happens. And so, I think it's going to be, I don't think points will come by easily, but I love the athleticism of CJ Stroud, that he certainly can move when he needs to. And I think his running might be a big factor in that game. And on the other side, I think Flacco is certainly more limited, in what he can do. I mean, obviously he's an accurate passer, and he still has arm strength, certainly, and can stand in the pocket and deliver the ball. But I think that, I just like the athleticism of CJ Stroud and them being at home. So I think it's a close game. I think it's probably low scoring, but I'm going to take the Houston Texans upsetting the Cleveland Browns.
Okay, well, I do like that pick. I mean, the last time we saw Stroud in this high pressure situation, if you want to exclude the Colts game last week, it was the last year's college football championship game, right? The Georgia Bulldogs faced Ohio State, and he played lights out. I think I've said that several times, but man, Stroud played the best game of his college career in the highest stakes game against the best defense he'd ever seen. And he might be going back against the best defense he's ever seen in the Cleveland Browns in the highest stakes game of his career now. So I think you are right that he will come loose. He will play well. But I ultimately have the Browns taking this one. All that to say, I think the Browns are just a significantly better defense. And I think that with Joe Flacco coming in and actually moving the chains on the offense, I think they have enough to put up points against the Houston defense that has been playing rather well under DeMeco Ryans. So first game, and we disagree. That's a great start. So let's get into the second one. Kansas City Chiefs against the Miami Dolphins, Alex. I think I know which way you're going here.
I think it's obvious. I think this one, this game, so obviously, for those of you that might be new listeners, I'm a diehard Chiefs fan. And I got the Chiefs winning and covering because there's a couple factors here. First off, it was announced today that Mostert is not playing. He's already ruled out, along with what's the running the other wide receiver?
Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle. Yep, Jalen Waddle's out. Raheem Mostert's out. So that was announced today, and so that definitely is certainly a big impact. I mean, this Dolphins team is just ravaged with injuries. You saw they were having issues, across their defense. There got guys playing in there that haven't played. So obviously the injuries definitely goes, against the Dolphins and helps the Chiefs. The Chiefs are relatively healthy. There's some questions about their left tackle playing, but even that they've played a few games without him. So that's up in the air. But another thing is this. So then I saw another stat that it was showing that the Miami Dolphins have not won a game below 30 degrees in like 15 years, and I was something like that, and I couldn't believe it. But I have to go find where I saw that. But it is literally scheduled to be like 5 degrees in Kansas City, maybe less than that with the wind chill. It is going to be a bitterly cold game, potentially a snow game as well. And so you think about as the teams prepare. Now, obviously, the Chiefs are used to this. And I mean, Tyreek Hill, used to be used to this, but I mean, he's had a couple years down in that Florida weather. And so, if you're spending all week practicing in Florida, there's no way you can simulate that for your body. You could try to pump the temperature down in the practice facility, whatever you got to do. But, even putting that practice facility at 20 degrees is not the same as playing in 5 degrees with a negative wind chill in Kansas City. So, I feel really good about the Chiefs' chances there. And so I think if it becomes a kind of a defensive running game type of situation, I love the Chiefs' chances. So, and obviously I like McDaniel. I like what he's been able to do down there, but Andy Reid always pulls out stuff for the playoffs that he's been keeping. So Andy Reid has got plenty of things up his sleeve and he'll be ready. And the Chiefs defense is going to be ready as well. So if you got Tua running for his life in the snow, trying to throw bombs to Tyreek Hill, I like the Chiefs' chances really well. So that's my long way of saying give me Kansas City and covering.
Okay, so where do you see the news on Waddle and Mostert? I see here that they didn't practice today, but would have been limited, and McDaniel is optimistic that they are both going to play on Saturday, and that came out 3
Okay,
hours.
so I saw that. I watched the NFL Network preview of the game about 2 hours ago, and they said on NFL Network that both were ruled out.
Interesting. I don't think that's that. I mean, yeah, I believe you. I don't see that anywhere. So maybe you're right. I am actually taking the other side. I think I'm taking Miami to win this. My answer would change if Waddle is out. I think that the Kansas City defense is very good. They are also zone heavy. And I think that with those two receivers in Tyreek and Waddle, I think they are going to be able to eat up the zone without the Chiefs being able to allocate too many resources towards Hill. Now, the reason Waddle changes my decision so significantly is because I think the Chiefs will be able to play on defense entirely differently if Waddle's in versus out based on how they allocate resources towards Tyreek Hill. So I'm still I'm locking in Miami. I'm still taking them. Again, the reason
Ride or die. They're your
Yeah.
ride or die, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't blame you for sticking to your guns. But I mean, earlier in the year, I mean, when these two teams played, and that was in a dome, and the Chiefs locked down both Waddle and and Hill in that game. I think Hill ended up with like 60 yards or something, and Waddle had 40. So I mean, the Chiefs locked him down in a dome. So I definitely feel like out in the snow or even just out in the bitter cold, I like the Chiefs' defensive chances there.
Yeah, I do not have the game lines up. Do you know if they who's favored?
The Chiefs are favored by 4.
Yeah,
the Chiefs
okay, I see
by
it.
4, which is why I said I think they're going to win and cover. So I think it will be Chiefs victory over 4 points.
Well, that's 2 games in and 2 differences. Let's see if we can keep it up. I doubt it though, because Buffalo is facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm just going to come out and say it. Sorry, Steelers fans. I think Buffalo. I think they win very heavily. I know they're 10-point favorites. I think that is it with a projected point total of the over under is 36.5. So that would give Pittsburgh an implied point total of 13. So they are not expecting Pittsburgh to score too much against the Bills. And I stand with Vegas on this one.
Yeah. By the way, is Mason Rudolph starting or is Pickett back? Do you know?
Let's see. I think
not,
it's Rudolph.
Not that really matters.
I thought they decided to go with Rudolph last week, anyway, even when Pickett was healthy.
And Pickett, okay. Yeah, because I know he gave him a little bit of a boost a couple games ago. But no, I mean, the only way this game, I honestly just can't even see a scenario where the Steelers win. Really, obviously it's not impossible. Anything can happen. But I mean, even if Josh Allen goes turnover prone, in the first half. I mean, we just saw how I think against a better Miami team, he was able to get himself collected and take care of it, and that was on the road. So, I mean, if I'm the Bills, I don't even need to do anything crazy. Like, I think if they just stay within themselves, they just play turnover-free football, I don't think they're going to have problems moving the ball and stopping this Pittsburgh offense. So if I'm the Bills, I'm not pulling out any of my special bag of tricks. And also, I'm not gonna have Josh Allen run a bunch and take a bunch of hits. I'm just gonna run with Cook. I'm gonna pass it, stay within the offense, and I think they'll be fine and take care of business.
Yeah, and TJ Watt's out, right?
Okay.
So now that will give more snaps to my boy Nick Herbig. I loved him in the draft process. Thought he was a super talented edge rusher, but only came in around 225 during that college season. Now he's listed at 240. So better watch out. Easy TJ Watt replacement there in the 4th round rookie. But no, I don't think that. I don't see a world where Pittsburgh wins unless, as you say, they're 1 or 2 pick sixes, and then Pittsburgh can hold on to the ball for about 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the NFC. Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Alex, who do you have?
So I just decided in the NFC that I wanted mass chaos because I thought it would be fun. I still think that obviously there's a team that I think is still kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. I still, little sneak peek, have them coming out of the NFC. But in the lower rounds, I like some chaos. So as bad as the Buccaneers played, I'm going to pick the Buccaneers because I do think that the Eagles are in a free fall. Obviously, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. And I just saw them get beat down by the Giants in a game that mattered, that they played their starters. Now, it was an outside chance. I mean, they needed the Cowboys to lose to the Commanders, and they had to win to be able to, reclaim that division. So it was a little bit of a long shot. But either way, I mean, the Eagles played their starters and just got manhandled and just beat down by the lowly New York Giants. So I think they're in free fall. I don't think that Sirianni is able to, I don't think, like we mentioned earlier, I mean, he's supposed to be a rah-rah guy, and he obviously hasn't been able to get through this team because it's not even as much about rah-rahs. Like you need people that are schematically I mean, in the playoffs, you have to out scheme your opponent, right? And I mean, it's not like these are. I mean, all the teams in the playoffs are good. Even Tampa Bay, while it's certainly one of the worst playoff teams, it's not like they don't have some guys. They got a couple guys in there that are Super Bowl champions. They obviously have guys in that defense that that know what it takes to win. So all my way is saying I don't know really how they get it done, but I'm just going to go with I need some chaos. So I'm taking the Buccaneers over the Eagles.
To your point, Buccaneers are a very healthy roster compared to pretty much the rest of the NFL. They have all their starters who should be active and ready to go. They also couldn't score a single touchdown against the Carolina Panthers, who have good defensive coaching, I think, and a good defensive talent. They just have been devoid of talent on their entire offense. But Buccaneers not being able to score a touchdown on them made it for a little bit of a rough game. I'm going to take the talent of the Eagles in this one, who, again, the Eagles have been performing horribly. They have been having on-field and off-field issues, and it's hard to see them go winning against many of these teams right now. The Buccaneers are one team where I do think that they'll be able to pull it off.
So you got the Buccaneers as well then?
No, I have the Eagles.
Oh, okay.
I have the Eagles.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take the talent over. Yeah, over the Buccaneers.
Cool.
All right, let's get on
to
the Lions and Rams. Do you want to take this one first?
You go first this time.
All right. Well, this might be my. Oh no, it's not my only upset pick because I picked Miami, but I have the Rams winning over the Lions. Alex wanted chaos. This is my version of chaos, very controlled chaos. I think Matthew Stafford, funnily enough, is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. When the trade happened, so did everyone else anyway. I think that the Lions are going to suffer a bit without record-setting rookie Sam Laporta. I think it'll be difficult to rely exclusively on Amon-Ra St. Brown in the passing offense, and I can see the Rams being able to throw all over the Lions. With Cooper Kupp, he's fully healthy, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, I think they'll be able to eat up this Lions secondary, and I think the Lions will have a harder time scoring this week. So there it is. I think the Rams will win, not by a lot, but enough.
Yeah, no, I actually have the Rams as well. My thought. I mean, I think in the playoffs generally, even the home and away. I mean, to me, what matters more is who has the better quarterback and who is the better coach, right? That doesn't always mean that that's the way it goes, but it's just such a heavy difference maker. And I like the Rams in both those scenarios. I mean, Goff's having a great year, and he's certainly helped stabilize that passing attack in Detroit. But I mean, I think Matthew Stafford's ceiling is higher, and we've seen that he's a Super Bowl champion, which Goff actually had an opportunity and couldn't get it done. So I like the quarterback better for the Rams, and I like the coach better. I like Dan Campbell. He's a culture guy as well. But we've already talked a couple times about some questionable decisions he's made as a head coach. And I think Sean McVay could probably coach circles around him. And so as much as I like Dan Campbell, so I think the Rams make enough adjustments. I think we get to see some, maybe some vintage Aaron Donald in there as well. And I think the Rams are gonna win this game.
Now, just on the coaching point, the Washington Commanders and the Chargers. Let's see, maybe the Panthers too. No, just the Chargers and the Commanders have already requested interviews with both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the Lions OC and DC, for potential head coaching positions. So the Lions are a very well coached team. I think Dan Campbell fills his role well as a guy to play for, and then his coordinators are fantastic. So I'm not 100% sure I give the coaching edge to the Rams unquestioned, but they are a very well coached team on both sides of the ball. Clearly, it just is a conversation.
Sure. And I guess it takes us to Dallas Cowboys, Green Bay Packers, the last game that we have here in the first round. I think that the Packers could make some noise, but I do have the Cowboys winning this. I think that the Cowboys being at home, I mean, obviously they're undefeated at home and they've played really excellent football at home. And so I think Packer fans are probably just, excited that year one of Jordan Love got him in the playoffs, and Jordan Love has certainly gotten better as the year has gone on. There's some times where, he looked early like, is this the guy? And, who knows? And then later in the year, it was like, wow, now he looks like he really could be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
So it'll be curious to see how he comes out and plays in this game. But I just think the talent is pretty heavily on the Dallas side. So I do think Dallas takes care of this business in this game.
Yeah, I think this game has a similar outlook to the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. The spread is 7.5, so a little more respect towards Green Bay than they're giving towards Pittsburgh. But I think Dallas handles this. I actually do think the point margin in this game will be greater than the Buffalo Steelers game. I think Dallas wins handily. I was running a few numbers the other day using NFL Fast Star to look up who had the greatest advantage at home versus away. So I did average EPA per play across the season of home games minus away games for both offense and defense, and then tiered them using offense and defense is just 1-to-1 to see who was in tier 1 for the greatest advantage at home compared to their performance when they are away. There were 3 teams: Dallas, Miami, as we've talked about on this podcast. Very surprised at the third one. You have any guess?
No.
Tennessee Titans. Significantly better, both offense and defense at home.
Interesting.
In a way. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, that Miami one, that makes me feel even better, right? They've got their bodies used to that. They're used to that Florida, heat. And, man, them hammies are going to feel cold in 2-degree weather in Kansas City.
All right, Alex, now that we are done with the wild card round. You want to just pull up either yours or mine.
Yeah.
Either way is fine.
One
of our brackets.
Yeah. How about we do this, Cam? Yeah, you can go first here and just do your 2 AFC divisional games, and then I'll do mine, and then we'll do NFC, and we'll roll.
Sounds good. So I have the full. For you YouTube viewers, it is all spoilers on the screen. But for divisional, Baltimore is playing Miami. I would love to roll with my preseason Super Bowl pick. Losing the Super Bowl, I picked Miami under Philadelphia. But I am going to go with Baltimore. They're just such a better team at this point in time. They're coming off of a bye, right? They get that first-round bye as being the 1 seed. And we saw Baltimore against Miami earlier in the year, and it wasn't too favorable. So I have Baltimore winning this game. And then I'll just go over my second game right now. I have Buffalo against the Cleveland Browns. I honestly went back and forth a little bit on this one. I like the Browns, but I am going to take – I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna take Buffalo. I think the Browns defense is superb. I don't trust – I was gonna say I don't trust Josh Allen. Oh, I'm going with Buffalo. I think this one could go either way, though. I clearly like the Browns a bit more than you do. What do you think of these picks?
I like that. I mean, honestly, if somehow Miami beats the Chiefs and I go into deep depression, when I come back out of said depression, I just don't see any way Miami, after a really probably cold game in Kansas City, is then going to go and play another cold game on the road in Baltimore. I don't see them beating Baltimore. I think Baltimore is obviously, clearly the best team in the AFC. I will say, we talked a little about this. It will be really curious to see in this divisional round how Baltimore looks in the first quarter, because they did rest most of their starters rested week 18 and had a bye. So they should be healthy and rested, but the question is, will they be rusty? And that will certainly be something to keep an eye on there in that game. And then on the other side, I think the Browns could make it interesting. I do think that their defense can generate turnovers, and I think turnovers are the Achilles heel for this Buffalo team. You just never quite know exactly what you're going to get from them. So I think if this game happened, I think it could be closer. I think if the Browns win the turnover battle, they sure would have a shot.
And before we move on from the Browns, I just want to say how hilarious it would be if Deshaun Watson wins a Super Bowl ring on IR with Joe Flacco starting over him on his fully guaranteed contract.
Yes, and I guess another thing though is I'm looking at the bracket is is there any way that the Browns would play the Ravens? I don't. Actually, yes, they would. If the Browns win, and then both Chiefs and Bills win, then Chiefs and Bills would play each other in the divisional round, and the Browns would play the Ravens. So that could happen. Right. And honestly, that's a game I want to see.
It's pretty likely,
please
actually.
Just give that to us. Yeah, it could. Please give that to us because I want to see Joe Flacco going into Baltimore to play against the Ravens as a Brown. I mean, that's just give me that. That would be awesome.
Well, the Vegas odds have that happening, right? So that's pretty likely.
I don't have that in my bracket because I know I picked the Texans to win that game. But yes, that would be. I do want that. That would be awesome.
All right, man. Let's move over to your bracket then.
All right. So for mine, I have obviously the only difference there being I have the Texans against the Ravens and then Bills and the Chiefs. Of course, now you can see my bracket in all of its glory. And so I have, I think that with the Ravens Texans, who knows, maybe the Texans can get hot and keep it close, but I think the Ravens are obviously leaps ahead where the Texans are. So I think that wouldn't, I don't think that would be a very entertaining game because as long as the Ravens aren't horribly rusty, I would think they'd come out and take care of business pretty easily. Obviously, the Buffalo Kansas City game that would be a lot of fun.
That will be fun.
I think that will be a lot of fun. It's going to be in Buffalo, which obviously is the different setting than where it was the last time these teams faced at the divisional round and had a obviously very memorable game 2 years ago. But I do think that I shared a couple of my thoughts about the Chiefs. In their face-up in their matchup against the Dolphins, but I mean I think the Chiefs' defense is a little bit underrated. Even though they're an elite unit, I don't think they're talked about that much, and they are healthy, and they're number 2 in sacks and pressures in the NFL this season. I mean, their defensive line is just mauling people. Between Chris Jones doing his normal thing, and then Charles Omenihu has really came on and had a great season. Karlaftis took a big step forward. And so, I mean, just even those 3 guys, Mike Dana has had a great season. So, I mean, they are going to put a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. And I think that can certainly cause him to make some mistakes and turn the ball over. And I think that the Chiefs their defense will be ready to get those turnovers. And then on offense, I think that the Chiefs are going to lean into their run game, and I like that. I like that with Pacheco, and I think that they're, like I said, I mean, I think Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they're obviously champions and all-time greats, both of them. So I think they'll figure it out. They'll figure out how to use the pieces that they have, and like I said, Andy Reid always holds some stuff back. I mean, we all, If Kadarius Toney lines up on side, then the Chiefs would have beat the Bills this season, right? I mean, they had the game-winning play, and it was called back, and it should have been. Kadarius Toney was offsides. I'm not arguing that, but the Chiefs already took care of business against the Bills earlier in the year. So all in all, I got the Chiefs taking care of that game.
Yeah, I was just looking up Charles Omenihu versus Mike Dana, and you're right. They've really come on online, especially Omenihu lately, in that he had a lot of pressures in the Green Bay and Buffalo game earlier this season. So, yeah, I like it. I mean, obviously I didn't have the Chiefs beating Miami, so I probably wouldn't have them beating Buffalo right now as well, but we will see what happens. Now, let's get on to the NFC And I'm looking at our brackets right now. We only have one difference. So we can go through these games one by one. But let's start with the 49ers against the Rams. I don't think there's a lot to say here. I think the 49ers handled this game well coming off the bye. I think it's funny that we both have the Rams beating Detroit week 1. I don't think those teams are too far apart in talent, and I think the 49ers are 1 to 2 tiers above each of those teams. So I have 49ers, not much else to say about it on my end.
Yeah, same here. I have the 49. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Rams can try to keep it close early on, but the Niners are going to be rested, and I don't expect them, to be. I don't know. I guess I don't have as many concerns about them being rusty because they had a bye last year and they look great off the bye, and then this year, actually, I don't think they had a bye last year. I actually think the Eagles had the bye, so maybe not, but. But either way, I mean, in the playoff games that we've seen, they've looked good. And the concern and the reason I brought that up with the Ravens is because we've seen them come off a bye. And I know each team's different, but, we've seen Lamar struggle and be a bit rusty in a playoff game off the bye. So anyway, I'm not concerned about that for the 49ers. So, yeah, I think they handled Rams. Probably it may not even be close.
All right, so moving on to the next game, I have the Eagles against the Cowboys. I know they split games this season, right? The Eagles beat the Cowboys early in November, while as the Cowboys trounced the Eagles in December more recently. But as you said, the Eagles have been having issues over the last couple of months. They got beat by the Cardinals. They got beat by the Giants. Then, of course, in December alone, they also got beat by the Seahawks and the Cowboys and the 49ers. So they are not going in the right direction, whereas I think the Cowboys are a very solid unit. I just think the Cowboys handled this game inside and out at every level of the field. Now you have the Cowboys against the Buccaneers.
So I have because I had the Bucs beating the Eagles, but yeah, I think the Cowboys take care of the Bucs. I think that might be lower scoring, but I think that. I think the Cowboys take care of the Bucs as well. So we both have the Cowboys reaching their first conference championship since the 90s. So something to say about that.
You love to see it as a Commanders fan hosting this podcast. All right, let's go on to the conference round. Back to the AFC. I have Baltimore against Buffalo. You have Baltimore against Kansas City. I'm going to be brief again. I think that Baltimore takes this. I was very hesitant when I was discussing the Bills against the Browns as who's going to come out on top. I think they both the Buffaloes and Browns clearly have their flaws. I don't see many flaws on the Ravens right now. I think they're a very well-coached team, very well-run team, and they have lots of talent all across the roster. So I think they take this one.
Yeah, I would make sense. I think if this happens, I think I would definitely lean towards the Ravens. So no issue there. So for me, I have the Ravens and the Chiefs, and I have the Chiefs beating the Ravens on the road in Baltimore. And honestly, this is mostly so I just to remind folks, I picked my preseason Super Bowl pick was officially the Kansas City Chiefs over the San Francisco 49ers. So I can't. As a Chiefs fan, I can't. If that happens and the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, I can't be that guy, that Chiefs fan that abandoned ship, right, and didn't believe in the team. So I do think that this would be a really very, very difficult game for the Chiefs to win. I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC, but who knows? We haven't really got to see Patrick Mahomes on the road in the playoffs. So who knows? Maybe he certainly is dominant during the regular season on the road through his career. And so who knows? Maybe he's able to work a little of that magic and make it happen. So I don't really have a lot of metrics that make me think the Chiefs would win this game, but anything can happen. And I'm a Chiefs fan, so I got the Chiefs.
You have belief.
I do. I have belief. Yes.
All right. Well, let's move down to the NFC. We both have San Francisco against Dallas. I actually wanted to put Dallas, but I just can't get myself to do that. So I'm taking the 49ers here as the these teams are so good at the same things, right? They both have, I mean, CeeDee Lamb versus, Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, and Deebo Samuel. I guess 49ers have the weapon edge there. But, the other weapons on Dallas, Pollard and Cooks, for instance, they haven't had the best years, but they're no slouches. They might not match up to the trio of, and Kittle on the 49ers too, the quartet of weapons that the 49ers have. But they have a darn good offensive line. Like the 49ers have a decent offensive line. It's been a little bit hampered lately, and they both have good front sevens, right? So I think these are oddly similarly structured teams. I think in a vacuum, this might be a hot take, but I'd take Dak over Purdy. But the way the offenses are set up, I think they're pretty comparable to each other in terms of effectiveness and efficiency when running their respective offenses. So I will give the slight edge. I've more soundly convinced myself in the 49ers, just talking out loud to you lovely people. So we're going 49ers, Ravens in the Super Bowl.
There you go. Yeah, I got the Niners winning this game as well. I think I agree. When I was thinking about, I always think about quarterback and coach, and I'd give the coaching edge to San Francisco. I think that although both coaches are offensive play callers, Shanahan has proved year after year that he really can dial some stuff up. And I know McCarthy has won a Super Bowl with peak Aaron Rodgers, so I didn't forget that. But still, I think Shanahan is going to have his fingerprints in this game, and I like him in the coaching advantage. At quarterback, I kind of feel like it's a wash, right? Like you said, there's certainly some elements of Dak's game that I like, and his physicality, being bigger and stronger, and I think that that plays a more physical brand of football than Purdy. But Purdy has that twitch, and he certainly has the immense command over that offense, over a complicated offense, and that gives him a big edge there. And then the weapons I like better, and I like the 49ers better. So and I think the defenses are pretty evenly matched. And I know that we saw this game match up earlier in the season, and of course the 49ers just kind of destroyed the Cowboys. So I don't think it's that level of destruction again, but I do think that the 49ers are I think they're really heading above the best team in the NFC. So I think they're going to come out and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I hate to have the one seed against the one seed in the Super Bowl, but that's what I have. Ravens against 49ers. Man, I'm going to take the Ravens here. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they're the best team. You said this a couple of weeks ago. They're the best team in the NFL. I think that still holds true. 49ers, while they are excellent, they have been known to falter at times. They have had certain weak areas exploited. And there are times when some of their players, not named Christian McCaffrey, underperform. And while that's true of anyone, I just think the Ravens have more of a I just think they're a better overall roster, and they're very well coached on both sides of the ball. And I just think they take it. It might be a close game, but I'm more confident in my selection for the Ravens over the 49ers than I was for my 49ers over the Cowboys pick.
There you go. Yeah, so you got the 49ers getting their hearts broken again. Not just making it back to the Super Bowl, but then losing another one. And of course losing to the Ravens again, right? Who they lost to 10 years ago. So yeah, 49er fans, you're gonna have to go at Cam. So for me, I have, of course, I already basically said it, but yeah, I have the Chiefs and the 49ers at a rematch of the Super Bowl 54. And here's the thing: if I stuck with the Chiefs through the whole playoffs to this point, you think I'm going to abandon them now? Of course not. I got the Chiefs finding a way to make it happen, and go ahead and claim the third Super Bowl in the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid era. But I think it'd be a fun game, and certainly, I think that the 49ers, if they face the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl, they're more competent at quarterback than they were last time. Even though Jimmy Garoppolo had a good season that year, Jimmy Garoppolo had chances to make throws in that game and he couldn't get it done. So I'd feel better about Purdy getting the opportunity to make those throws. So yeah, it'd be a fun Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, you are a stronger man than I, sticking with your preseason pick. My preseason pick of the Eagles over Miami is possible. I didn't have either of them making it out of the divisional round. So good for you on that, sticking to your guns. I am adapting with what I have seen. Some would call that intelligence. Some would call that cowardness. But we will see what happens here soon enough. And I am so excited to start watching these playoff games. It'll really allow us to watch each game individually a lot closer than we're able to hit on a lot of these games during the season with so many games. I mean, there were how many 4 p.m. games were there on Sunday? It was like 10. I've never I feel like that's never happened before. It might have on the last week of each season, but there are, yeah, it'll be nice being able to watch each game closely.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, so with that, and of course, keep in mind, Cam, if somehow Miami finds a way to beat the Chiefs in the frozen tundra, you might have to do the Solo because I don't know if I can show myself, for a couple weeks. But there you have it, everybody. That's our brackets, of course, coming at you live. So you get a chance to let those sink in a little bit. If you'd like to tell us who you have for your Super Bowl champion or your bracket, then you can send that to us or post it in the comments and let us know what you think. And we'll see how they go as the year goes on. But I think with that, we are gonna, as we start to wrap the show up, Cam, we should probably, do you want to touch base real quick on a couple of the coaching changes going on, since it is we did have Black Monday this week, and what are your thoughts on some of those firings?
Yeah, we're not typically a news podcast. We're not going to bring you each and every move that happens throughout the offseason. We'll hit on the big ones. We'll talk a lot about the draft and about the offseason changes, but there are some very big there's some big things going on right now. The Giants coaching staff is sort of falling apart. They let go, I believe, their offensive line coach, a couple other guys, and their defensive coordinator up and left, right? He and Daboll did not have the greatest relationship. And I know that I'm pretty sure he just walked out the door, right? Resigned, and will be looking for a job elsewhere. And so while I see that falling apart, I see the Tennessee Titans, and they fire head coach Mike Vrabel. That was one of the more surprising moves so far. He has had a very winning tenure under them, and even without really any talent this year. I mean, a bottom of the barrel offensive line, right? They have injuries galore, and they're still pulling out competitive games and quarterback switches throughout the season, injuries at wide receiver, and they trade away Kevin Byard, probably one of their best defensive players, mid-season to the Eagles. And it's just, this team is going through so much, and they just beat Jacksonville, right? They come fighting each and every week. Vrabel consistently overperforms. When he has a good team, he wins. When he has a bad team, he still somewhat wins. So I think that Vrabel is going to get a head coaching job somewhere else very quickly.
Yes.
I think the reason a lot of these teams haven't requested him interviews with him yet is because it happened today. They had all their plans lined up. The teams like the Chargers, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Panthers, they all have been ready for many weeks. I know the Commanders are one of the only team there that kept their head coach until they parted ways with Ron Rivera yesterday. But everyone knew that was coming. It was a very amicable departure. Ron Rivera was very classy, wrote a nice little note that he shared with the fans, with the ownership, and that was great. But these teams, they have all their guys. They've sent in their requests, a lot of them for general managers and a lot of coaching requests as well. And Mike Vrabel, I think, was just a surprise to so many people. So we'll see if there are other firings that are unexpected that happen over the next bit of time, right? Next few days. And as the playoffs progress, I know a lot of the coordinators that are going to be interviewed for head coaching positions are in the playoffs, right? They're there for a reason. They're going to be interviewed for a reason. For instance, I brought up earlier, both of the Lions coordinators are being requested. I know Frank Smith is being requested for an interview by the Panthers. I love Frank Smith. I think he'll be a great head coach. Raheem Morris with the Rams, Mike McDonald with the Ravens, Dan Quinn with the Cowboys, right? These are all Slowick with the Texans. These are all guys, and there are many more they're pretty much all playoff team coordinators. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. Something that I want to keep my eye on is which individuals deny or just refuse to meet with these teams. I think Carolina, for instance, I think a lot of people might not want to meet with Tepper. They might not want to work for him, and I feel comfortable saying that because as a Washington fan, this happened to us a lot under Dan Snyder, right? Especially in the more recent years. It was not a very desirable destination. People did not want to come to Washington, D.C., and it affected our roster construction. It affected our coaching decisions. And, it all stems from it was not a good workplace environment. There's so much that went on. And it seems like the Panthers are unfortunately heading in that direction. And I wish them the best. I've always liked that organization, but Tepper's not making it easy. I know I've been sort of going in a roundabout way of sharing this news, but it's a very exciting time. There are a lot of names to go over. When the decisions start being made, we'll go over them a lot more in depth. But I think a lot of these teams are approaching this the right way. For instance, the Commanders, they're looking for their head of football operations first while requesting these interviews. They brought on professionals who are accustomed to building winning front offices, right? They brought in, what's his name? From the guy.
The
right?
Warriors.
Yeah,
the guy from the Warriors. Yeah, Bob. I forgot his name.
Yeah, we'll think of it soon.
Bob.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So Bobby Boy brought him in to help with these decisions. Obviously, he's not going to be evaluating, draft talent or anything. But having guys who know what they're doing in the front office is very important. And hopefully they will get a GM shortly who will help with the coaching decisions, and everything will be built up from there. But it's a very exciting time for all these teams. And I'm sure we'll have some surprise names on this list as well as we get into the deeper roles that are being filled.
Yeah, a couple thoughts I have. Thanks for that breakdown, Cam. A couple things to look out for. I think that Vrabel's a great coach, and I think he's going to have no problem getting another job. The question for me on him is, does he decide? Yeah, I was going to bring up, but does he decide to stay at the NFL? So far, he's always said that he wants to, but that Buckeyes job could certainly be very appealing. I think that he's obviously a Buckeye alum. Was on the staff before, earlier before he came to the NFL. And I think I just think that his football IQ and his ability to, I don't know how he would be on the recruiting trail, but I can tell you this, if he wants to come to Ohio State, they will pack up Ryan Day's box tomorrow and kick him to the curb, and they would be more than happy to bring in Vrabel. So I don't know if that's something in his plans or not, but that's something to keep an eye on. And then, like you mentioned, Cam, the other rumor for him is New England. Of course, that's not officially open yet, but it is still expected, at least by most folks, to become available soon. And so if that New England job becomes available, I mean, I'm sure that Robert Kraft would love having Vrabel, but if I'm Vrabel, I don't know if I even want to go there. I mean, it's like there's no talent, there's no quarterback. It's sort of a mess, but maybe he wants to come in and if he can get personnel control, full control, right? Which I know that was probably part of the problem in Tennessee.
Yes, definitely.
It was a little bit of some friction with the GM and all that. And so I think if Vrabel can get that vote of confidence from Kraft, come in and have full control over football operations and what's going on with the players, then maybe that becomes a very desirable position for him. So something to keep an eye on there. And then the rumor mill is also hot and heavy with obviously John Harbaugh, thinking about coming. Oh, excuse me, Jim
Yeah.
Harbaugh coming to the Chargers. So that's sort of that's what I've been hearing a couple different places say that's the
Chargers.
rumor
Okay.
is him going to the Chargers, and but we'll see. I think the Chargers to me is the most desirable open position right now as far as roster
Really?
and quarterback. I mean, I know that they obviously have some decisions to make as far as cap and all that. And I know people don't really like the family. The ownership is a little bit questionable as well. They're known to be cheap, to put it lightly. But if they're willing to fork over some coin, to me, having an opportunity to come and get that job and have Justin Herbert heading into his prime, to me, would be a very desirable job.
The name we were trying to think of earlier, Bob Myers.
Thank
By the
you.
way,
I was right. See, it was Bob.
There it is.
Bob,
It
Bob
was Bobby
Myers.
Boy. All right, now a couple things. I was listening to a press conference with Josh Harris recently, and they were asking his plans about GM versus head coach versus someone with more complete control. And he said, in his eyes, being a general manager is an 80-hour-a-week job. Being a head coach is an 80-hour-a-week job, and he is very open to. He wants to bring talent in and can reassess the plan from there. But how he sees it personally. And he recognizes he doesn't know everything about football, right? It's very new to him, and that's fine. If he is a smart businessman who can get smart people in the building and then be hands off, that's exactly what he's there to do, right? But that's why I don't love the whole full control aspect that Vrabel might want, that Belichick had, because it's too hard. There are too many smart people who are great at each for there to be one guy who is better than the best of the two people performing those jobs separately. If that makes any sense.
100%. 100%. I mean, and that's been the problem with. I mean, just look at Bill Belichick and what has happened to that roster, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every year it seems like with the Patriots, you're like they draft somebody and you're like, what in the world?
Who's Cole Strange?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you think about how much Bill invests into game planning and managing the roster week to week. I mean, there's just no way he's able to put the time in to do the same amount of scouting and draft prep as a GM who is working on that year round. So it's just there's only 24 hours in a day, no matter how much time you're putting into it and burning the candle at both ends, as I'm sure a lot of these guys do. So I agree. Those positions, I think that some of the best franchises and some of the best teams in recent memory have pretty much all been, they've had a clear delineation of responsibility between a GM and a head coach.
Yeah, and teams have these area scouts, right? They're just these film grinders who watch hours and hours and hours a day. And you expect the GM to have watched games of the players he's selecting. And in order to do that, he needs to watch games of pretty much everyone. Every GM has to grind tape at some point because they need to know how these guys are going to fit into the offense that the head coach is running, or offense or defense, of course. The scheme fits, how they play, how they're going to be utilized best, whether or not, the risks of taking them. And you really think Belichick has the time to grind college film for hours every day? Absolutely not. And I know general managers don't have all the time in the world to do that too. And it's a lot of their scouts doing the work for them, a lot of a team effort. And then I know they have film rooms together. They go over certain select players that their team is higher on and whatnot, and draft decisions are made from there with putting the board together. That's why a lot of players are completely taken off of the boards of many teams. And something you see that was the case with Washington. It's been reported quite a few times that the way Martin Mayhew liked to run things is he'd have his guys, he'd have a lot smaller list than many other teams. And you don't think Belichick has a list of it's not a list of 400 guys, guaranteed. It's like 20 dudes on a sheet of paper, handwritten, and he wants the guys he's met with and who he likes on his team. And obviously, I'm exaggerating and I'm speculating here a bit as well. I'm not. This is not all factually reported information that I'm saying, but it makes sense. And these teams, I really don't think there'll be a lot of teams giving full control over to someone in the future. But if one team's going to do it, it's going to be the Patriots giving it to Vrabel. So we'll follow that closely. We'll see how it is. And I just have one more question for you about that topic. There's been a lot of talk over the last 2 years about Jerod Mayo potentially becoming the Patriots head coach after Belichick leaves. I know he sits in interviews with Belichick. He's been the assistant head coach for a while. And it's more speculation, but it seems very clear and obvious that it was the original plan for him to be head coach after that when Belichick leaves. And Belichick, by the way, he hasn't left yet, right? Most people seem to think he's going to leave. I'm one of those people in some way or another, probably under his own volition, but it's not an open position yet. Well, what do you think happens to Jerod Mayo if Belichick leaves and they hire Vrabel?
I don't know. I mean, I would wonder if he would still want to stay in the building. And I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I need to go back and see. I haven't looked up what Vrabel did when he took over in Tennessee, if he kept some of the position coaches or if he cleared house and brought his own people in. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I think that Jerod Mayo, I think he'd have an opportunity with another team.
I think he would too, as a defensive coordinator, probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah, probably not as a head coach, but as another coordinator. So I don't know. I really don't. I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, because he's technically only a linebackers coach right now, but he's been the assistant head coach for a while. He seems to understand sand management, at least, again, from the outside. That's what it appears. Now, just one last thing, team we didn't touch on, the Falcons. They did they fired Arthur Smith. That happened very quickly. I know a lot of fans are very pleased about that. I know a lot of fans of other teams were waiting for that to happen because most people who like football play fantasy football, and he was sort of the devil of fantasy football for this last year with how he utilized players. I know there's some, again, just fun speculation, no reports that Vrabel would want him back on his staff as a coordinator. That would be interesting, to say the least.
They could rock the mustaches together again.
They could. All right, man. Any other coaching news you want to touch on? I know we'll have a lot to come back to next week after the first week of playoffs, but
only question I have is actually one for you. Is Josh McDaniels on a staff next year as a coordinator or a head coach?
Oh man. Hold on. I don't think so. I really.
Oh, here we go. Who's more likely, Josh McDaniels or Brandon Staley?
Brandon Staley. Yeah, I've been actually pretty transparent. I think Brandon Staley's going to. I think he might be a defensive coordinator again this year. I think teams are going to give him the chance. I don't think he ever did anything to show that when he just focuses on his defensive responsibilities as a coordinator, that he would be bad in that position, right? He had great success in the few years where he was a DC. So he might be demoted to a positional coach plus defensive senior advisor, right? Or assistant, or something along those lines, and then moves back up. But I think Brandon Staley gets a job very easily in the NFL. Man, these New England trees, right? The Belichick tree of coaches have never done well elsewhere, it seems.
No.
And McDaniels made so many poor decisions and showed, honestly, it seems like a lack of game knowledge in his time with the Raiders. It was just baffling, some things that he would say in press conferences and decisions he'd make, and time management and basic math a couple of times where that just doesn't make sense. Okay. He said, well, it takes 2 possessions to get 8 points anyway. and everyone's looking at him. What?
Speaking of math, Cam, can we just laugh for a second about the fact that for the next, I think it's 5 years, the Raiders still have to pay both of their previous 2 coaches. They're paying Gruden and McDaniels for like the next 5 years. It's just it's pretty laughable. It's bad.
Yeah, then 22, they signed into a 6-year deal worth about $10 million per year.
Yeah, so 4 years. So they got 4 more years of McDaniels, and they still have at least 3 or 4 more for Gruden as well. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah, and they were cash poor for a bit too. They don't have the Tepper money or the
Harris money.
yeah, exactly. So, man, I'm excited. I'm getting fired up for this offseason. You know, the time between January and May is my favorite time of the year for football. So we'll be getting a lot more into draft content and going over what the team's actions are as we move forward and go throughout the playoffs here. Alex, anything to add before we leave this podcast that may have run a little over time?
Yeah, but we're having fun. So, no, I think by the time we do this podcast again next week, there will only be 8 teams left, everybody. So Super Wildcard Weekend will be in a wrap, and there'll be 8 teams left. So we're excited to recap those games and look forward to the divisional round with you next week.
Yeah, and hopefully I will no longer be sick and my voice will come back in full. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us this week. It was a lot of fun going over our predictions with you guys, as well as talking just a bit about a glimpse into the offseason. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we'll be there. Make sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And we will see you all next week. Peace.
Peace.